Hello, guys. Izabella, it's an Amazon Made Simple podcast. And today it will not be the ordinary podcast one, but we'll be talking about just tips and tricks how to do your Amazon simpler, easier, better, and trickier. Today we will talk about women power working in e-commerce space. Yeah, I have this interesting approach that we will test it out and see if you actually like it. And if you will like this podcast, please let me know and I will bring more guests like Lisa Kinski that is working for Getida. She joined very male driven company, and I don't know if you have any female in the company at this moment. I think it's just Rob, Yoni, Ethan, or there is somebody else.
We definitely had female associates when I joined the company, but there had never, with the exception of one conference, there had never been a woman who consistently attended shows and was a face of the brand prior to me joining the company. And it was funny because I even picked on the guys for this when I had seen them at Prosper before I joined Getida. They had 8 or 9 guys at the booth, and I was like, you're missing some diversity here. I don't see a single woman. Y'all better fix that. I didn't mean for it to be me, but I'm happy that it was. It just worked out that way.
And here, how we're welcoming Lisa Kinski to this podcast. Lisa, welcome, and thank you for being here with me today.
Thank
So,
you for having me.
the female of the Amazon e-commerce industry. So, please tell me. I remember you've been actually interviewing me, and it was 2021, probably
Yeah.
something back in the days. And you've been working for another company, and that was another guy that was with you on the podcast. But anyway, right now you're with Getida, and how do you feel being surrounded by big brands, big sellers? You're seeing other people wealth literally growing. You're seeing how Getida is reimbursing a lot of money, and you see these numbers in front of your face going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So how does it feel like?
It actually feels most impressive and most impactful when we're speaking to some of the smaller brands or when we go to conferences and have a brand owner approach us or a seller approach us and say, "Hey, we started with you guys 2 years ago and I paid off my daughter's college education with the money you got me back," or we were able to retire from our full-time jobs and have financial freedom. So it's exciting to see some of the household name brands and items that I have in my own home come through Getida's doors as clients. It's like, oh, that's nice, that's fun. But it's the smaller sellers who we're helping to get really big, which is where it feels most like we're making a difference. Because prior to joining Getida, I thought how a lot of other people think is that, oh, Jeff Bezos owns every piece of inventory in Amazon and it's just feeding this huge corporation when really it's comprised of all of these smaller businesses, these independents, and it feels really good to kind of help them, these mom and pop shops grow. So it's nice. It's good.
Okay, so that's how you feel being Getida's, I would say, head of one of the divisions. But how do you feel about it as Lisa?
About being just Lisa.
Just Lisa, yeah, just Lisa in the community of e-commerce, just Lisa in the company, in a big company. Getida is a huge company. I don't know how many times you guys already got acquired and merged, but you're just growing like
Yeah.
a sourdough.
So it's great being having been welcomed by the community in general, right? We have such an incredible community of e-commerce and just the Amazon space where everybody's very welcoming and ready to help each other share and to grow and make introductions where they make sense. And to be one of the female faces of the brand when there was not one before has absolutely been an honor. I think that having female representation has opened up some doors for Getida that maybe we didn't have before. And then internally working at Getida, like you've said, the team is much bigger than people realize. So when I joined, I think, I joined right at 2 years ago. I think we had 80 some odd, 100 some odd employees. And now we're nearing 300. And I'm almost an OG, as we would call it. So I get to be a resource for a lot of our new and oncoming employees and even some some other OGs were like, hey, we don't know what's going on with this competitor, or what was this show like? So it's nice to be that resource for everybody internally. I like to help. So that's a good feeling as well.
That's so great. So, if we will go back in time a little bit, did you graduate school, high
I
school?
did.
Okay.
Yes,
Did you go to college?
I did. Yes.
Okay. So, what is your profession?
So I went to Kennesaw State University and I have a BBA in management. And I got that degree with no goal in mind necessarily. I didn't want to go to college. My parents didn't go to college. My brother didn't go to college. I have many very successful family members who didn't. And I never had a North Star career that I felt I needed to go to school for. Now, my parents coerced me into going or convinced me to go. And it was really one of the best decisions that I could have ever made. I graduated in December of 2016 with my BBA and then went into criminal background screening just kind of as an accident. So I got the management degree so I could just take it anywhere. I didn't want anything super niched down for my education. Um, so yeah, I can talk about that a little bit if you want, because that was an
I
interesting
do. Of
kind
course, I
of
do. It is
job.
interesting. Yes, it is interesting.
Yeah, so I was working in events while I was in school at a family entertainment center. It was called Brunswick Zone at the time. Now it's called Bolero. So they have like bowling and laser
Oh,
tag
wow.
and
Yeah,
all
I
of
know
the fun
Bolero.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at the Kennesaw location all throughout college. I had started in the events department and then actually got laid off because the corporation Brunswick had sold their bowling and billiards division. And when they got purchased by Bowmore AMF, they said, we have all of our own salespeople. We don't want any of the existing ones. We have a new way of doing it. So I then went from being on the sales team that was the number one producing store in the nation for the company to being a server and bartender to continue paying my way through school. So after I graduated,
Like
I
flip.
said, it was a huge change. But it was a team I already knew and my manager was great and he worked with me since I was still in school. But it was a hustle. And so I was working full time, going to school full time. And when I graduated, I went to one of my best friends and I said, I'm so tired of bartending and I want to move out of my parents' house. Can I move in with you? She's like, well, no, because I have two cats and you're allergic to cats. And also, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, but I can get you a job. So she helped me get on at this criminal background screening company where I worked for about 4 years, starting in customer success and then ended up shifting into customer
Is it one
experience.
of these companies like $29 a month and you can like run analytics about people, or it's like actual something like with the government to do, like, I don't know, companies?
Yeah, so we didn't work with the government necessarily. We were a wholesale provider of background screening. So we were actually going into the courthouses and pulling physical records, or we were using our tech to scrape through the records digitally because a lot of the courthouses are digitized, but a lot of them aren't. There are still many courthouses in rural Georgia where we have to flip through docket books to get people's records. So worked there for a number of years until the pandemic. I worked there until 2020 when all of the courthouses closed and nobody was getting jobs and nobody was moving. So there was no work to be done. So then I found myself unemployed with rent to
Again,
pay.
unemployed again. And what was, yeah, that was the time when it was, unless you knew what is the e-commerce, it was pretty hard to find a job. So what was your next step?
It was extremely hard to find a job. So from March until July, I put in over 200 applications at various workplaces, had I don't know how many calls with pyramid scheme companies and MLMs that wanted me to stand in a Walmart and sell direct TV packages. And until finally I ran across Noviland and Francois, who was my co-host at the old podcast, and the opportunity was over an hour away from my home, but I was like, whatever, I'll move. Like, I need a job. This is crazy. So I got on at Noviland, and it's funny because the name on the building was not Noviland's name. I come to find out later, they were subleasing because they had just moved from California to Norcross, Georgia. So it's a different name. And all I get is this picture about an hour before my interview from Francois that says, hey, it's this building, come in this door, and don't worry about the name being different. And I was like, okay, this is a little sketchy. And so I walk into the building and it's completely
It's like
empty.
the whole e-commerce, everything is sketchy and scammy.
It's just
In reality, it works.
it was so sketchy. And I walk in, it's completely empty. There's a couple office chairs, a couple boxes. And I was like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, this has to be some sort of scheme. This is a front for money laundering. Like, what's happening? And it ended up being legit. They just hadn't moved all their furniture yet. But that's how I got into e-com. So Noviland did the supply chain, end-to-end supply chain services. And we worked with a lot of Amazon sellers, and that's just how I started making connections ultimately in 2020.
And how did you become a co-host of the podcast? From like going, I am screening people if they did crime in the past, and being bartender. And now I'm on e-commerce and I'm actually running the podcast, asking questions and interviewing people.
Yeah. So I've always been really good at talking. I talk a lot. I don't know if I speak well, but I speak a ton. And I think Francois kind of realized that. And he also saw how many podcasts were popping up. I mean, this was 2020. Everybody was at home, everybody was trying
Do you
to
remember
find
Clubhouse?
something. Pardon?
Do you remember Clubhouse?
I remember Clubhouse. We were on Clubhouse. We were trying to make connections there. I mean, everybody was just seeking connection so much that it was like any avenue we can get it, we'll take it. Even one of our podcasts, Prime Talk, launched in 2020. So Francois came to me and he said, I want to start a podcast. And I said, you're insane. Absolutely not. We're not doing this. And he was like, no, I think it'll be really good. So he ended up convincing me to do it. We started with live streamed episodes and went through the process of getting verified through LinkedIn Live. We pre-recorded a couple of episodes with, some friends that we had made in the industry. I remember David Dayon was our first live streamed episode. And we just kind of started to hone our craft a little bit. And it was definitely a learning experience in terms of organizational excellence, preparing people, being sure that you have all of your ducks in a row to create the best hosting experience possible. And it also taught me a lot about what it means to be a good podcast guest, or I hope it taught me a lot, right? I hope I'm a good guest, but it
I
teaches
guess we'll
you.
see, guys.
We'll
Let us
see.
know in the comments if she was horrible or she's horrible.
Please, I love feedback.
Hello, everyone. Izabella Rtiz and Amazon Made Simple. I want to make sure you're getting the biggest value as possible from my podcast and from every single video I put out there. Please make sure to subscribe to my newsletter that I am posting the link below this video, and you'll be always up to date with the product research, validation, and development. It's completely free, promotion free, pure value forever and ever. She does love feedback.
I do. But yeah, it taught me a lot about connecting with people, networking, and we produced I think 173 episodes in the time while I was at Noviland. The first couple of episodes I was actually editing them myself, so I have a little bit of experience in video editing, and we did video and audio, and that was just painstakingly long. So at some point just didn't make sense for me to edit anymore, so I began managing a couple of VAs who were doing the editing for us, creating clips for social, etc. And throughout that podcast and the connections that I made, I got to know the Getida guys. And I think they were like, hey, we don't have all the time to record as much as we want to. You know how to. Come on over and we'll make a lot of content together and go to events. And it's kind of all, the rest is history. And it's funny because it somehow feels simultaneously like I've been at Getida 3 months, and it also feels like I've been here 5 years, right? It's like one of those things where you're so familiar, but also everything is still so fresh and so new and is always changing. So it's an exciting position to be in.
So, how did you feel being headhunted when you just started out? I believe it was like about 1 year you worked with Francois, with their company, and you kind of settled. And now you got headhunted by one of the biggest companies in the industry.
It's funny. So I was at Noviland for about a year and a half when I first started talking to Getida about
See,
moving.
I'm
I left.
tracking your timeline. Almost
Yeah, you
right.
are. So it was about a year and a half when I first started chatting with the Getida team about maybe the opportunity of moving over. So I wasn't looking to make a move. I was speaking with our then CRO about just the growth of Getida, and he was saying how many positions he needed to hire for, what he was looking for. And at the time, my best friend was in need of a new job, and she was a perfect fit for one of the positions he was outlining. So I remember we were at the Prosper after party at Skyfall in Las Vegas, and it's like 11 o'clock Vegas time. I'm texting my best friend in Atlanta, so it's like 2 a.m. I'm like, I have a job for you, send me your resume as soon as possible. She
And
woke
it's
up, sent it to
2021,
me.
right?
This is in 2020.
Two,
Yeah,
2020 to
2022.
2021, we didn't have it one.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was in summer, and then we had 2022, and then everything like went
yeah.
back on track.
Exactly. So this was March of 2022. So I had her get on board, and I kind of was already flirting with the idea of going to Getida. So I was like, okay, they're good guys, right? And so I feel confident placing her there. I know she'll excel, but she can also be my eyes and ears on the inside to see if it's really, this Wizard of Oz type land that it looks like. And after a couple of weeks, and she was doing very well, our then CRO came back to me and he was like, hey, she's amazing. Her name is Emma. She's our onboarding specialist. She's still with us today. Absolutely incredible. And he said, she's doing exceptionally. Do you have anyone for this job? And I was like, are you wanting me to find someone or are you wanting me? And he was like, just think about it. I was very flattered and also very, very scared because at the time, I was still in the mindset of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There was nothing wrong with my position at Noviland, and I really loved my boss and I loved my coworkers. But Getida did offer a lot of opportunity, and it has created a lot of opportunity for me. But I was suffering with a little bit of like limiting belief system of I don't know if I'm good enough to be at Getida because, like you said, they have such a huge presence. Sorry, we have such a huge presence. We have such a solid reputation. And also, I would be the only woman kind of outwardly facing joining the team, which was intimidating as well. But ultimately, I did what I
Hot
always do. I
one,
make a
hot one,
pros.
the super hot one.
You always flatter me. But I ultimately did what I always do, and I make a pros and cons list. I still have it somewhere in my office of pros of Noviland, cons, pros of Getida, cons. And at the end of the day, it was just made sense to make a move. And when I went to Francois and told him that I was leaving, I was crying, telling him I was leaving because was I didn't want to leave my team, but this was a better opportunity. And he looked at me, he goes, Lisa, Getida wants you, go. And I was like, okay, thanks. And I had his 100% support, which
I have
was so
goosebumps.
spectacular. It was so amazing. He was like, is there anything we can do to keep you? And I was like, not really. He goes, I didn't think so. Go. When's your last day? I'm so happy for you. And so they were just the most supportive, wonderful folks about my transition. And he has since moved on as well. He is now he's at Google in the DC office. So he's doing very well for himself as well. But
I even know
um,
where he's working. I remember driving past this building multiple times when we've been living there.
yeah,
A
right over
great
there.
place.
He's
Yeah,
it's
that's a great
a great
place.
spot to work.
Well, so since then, oh my god, it's 2 years, right?
2 years.
Right, 2 years
Mhm.
since you are in Getida, and I believe you're supposed to celebrate the anniversary. Did you get the bonus?
We there I have been compensated appropriately. There's not like an anniversary bonus that you get necessarily, right?
So
Everything
it's
is
on the
done.
podcast. It's on my podcast. So
You're right.
Yoni, Ethan, whoever is listening, you guys,
My
all
2-year
for a
Rolex.
bonus.
I want a 2-year Rolex.
2 years old bonus. Okay, so of course, when you're not running your own business and you're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs in front of you, a lot of people they are seeing excitement that they want to start something for themselves. And at the same time, a lot of people are feeling fear because you kind of secured on your spot. You have your paychecks, you're guaranteed with bonuses on the anniversary from time to time. You're being paid appropriately. And I know from my insights, Getid appreciates you and loves you a lot. They value you as a person, they value you as the specialist, they value you as an expert. However, you're still a person that they're seeing the opportunities. Are you seeing these opportunities, or you're just, okay, opportunities are there and I'm on my spot? So what is going on this side?
I have never really been one to wanna start something on my own. So, I was raised by blue collar entrepreneurs. So, my parents owned a heating and air company throughout my entire upbringing. And I was very aware, this is different, right? It's a different world. This was 90s, early 2000s. And with something like heating and air or plumbing or construction, you have to be there doing the work or you don't pay the mortgage, right? So, there was no long family vacations. We didn't do a lot of traveling. It wasn't digital entrepreneurship like the world we live in today, but that was my reality being raised. So I never wanted to start my own business because in my mind there was a lot of there's a lot of risk, right? If you get hurt on the job and you own your own business, you don't have somebody else's, workers comp to pay you or PTO or any of those other benefits that you get with an employer. So it's not really been, I think it's an exciting opportunity for folks who have the drive to create their own business and have that entrepreneurial bug in them. I think Amazon no doubt is the land of opportunity. But for me, I'm happy being a service provider and I see myself on this side of the table for quite a while longer. That might change in the future. You never know, but I'm happy where I'm at on the service provider side.
And that's totally great. And I appreciate your transparency here because, so many people, they want to be seen like, oh, entrepreneurship is so cool. One day I'm going to do it. But not a lot of people are ready to admit, like, no, it's actually not for me because I want to mitigate the risk for my life as much as it's humanly possible. And I am happy with my financial management. I know how I'm paying mortgage, how I'm paying my bills, and I don't want to be on the downside. And like, let's be clear, right now we're not in the best economy, right? E-commerce is surviving pretty well, especially those sellers that are in a good position with their products. You can see how much money are they making. You mentioned in the beginning how Getida reimbursed to some of them the amount of money they were able to cover their kids' college. And like, let's be clear, if the college is 100 grand a year, and some of the colleges, let's say like 2,200, like
Yeah,
the average. Some of the colleges are like, well, let's say the average will be like $30,000-$40,000 if they have some scholarships. And if $40,000 is 3% out of all money that Amazon, that Getida is reimbursing, then these guys are making how much? Like 3%. If 40 is 3%, so it's 120 is about 10%. So those guys are making about over $1 million a year, and this business keeps growing. So which is genuinely speaking amazing. And but at the same time, you probably saw a lot of sellers that had to quit, that had to stop, that had to close down their accounts, who's lost their accounts. And it is challenging, it is always challenging, and not every single person is really ready for those challenges. Sometimes I'm asking myself, if do I really want to quit and take a job? Trust me, I am there
you
sometimes. I'm like, yeah, sometimes I am. I'm like, damn, it's so challenging in a business because you have employees, you have clients, you have different obstacles that are like advertisement or marketing, or I don't know, Instagram is changing something. Like a lot of things are going on at the same time. And you're like, I want to quit. And like, show me one entrepreneur that didn't want to quit. And then I'm thinking, okay, now I am literally having coffee in a coffee shop in the middle of the day, or like walking the dogs and having all these thoughts. Will I be able to do it without be working for somebody? No. I'm like, okay,
right.
go and put yourself in work, bitch. So and it's great that people like you are out there, because everything I know about you, you're so committed and you're always there for your company. And because of leaders like you, companies are being able to grow. And Getida is the company that hired you, and they have you as the very strong in a very strong position. They feel secure because here is the individual that will help us grow and be stable, which is extremely important in the business.
Yeah,
Qualified
it
people like you are very rare.
Yes, I mean, I would agree. That's one of the great things about Getida specifically is, I was saying this to somebody the other day. I don't have to work at Getida. I have to pay my mortgage, but I can do that however I want to. But I choose to work at Getida because I love what we do. I love my job. I have the best job in the world. I get paid to travel around and make friends. Like, I truly have the best job. And when I'm not traveling, I'm still sitting here talking to friends all day long. It's the most amazing job. But our team is so passionate about what we do, who we're helping, how we're helping. And I think that's a testament to the culture that Yoni and Max and Aton and everybody else in leadership have created and cultivated, that we are all so driven and committed to our mission. It's a really unique space to work in, and it's really a gift.
It is. And sometimes I was being even jealous. I'm like, these guys are like so close and hold hands of each other, helping each other. And like, you guys are from a side, I can tell you're like a family. You have a great culture. You have a lot of competitors lately. And the thing is, those competitors are also your friends.
Yeah.
So you also have to be friends with them. So, Lisa, you're doing absolutely amazing. I am very proud of you, of everything you do, and I'm supporting you of every single choice you're making. And it's very pleasurable to see you growing, to see you committing, to see how your private life is changing. And I hope to see at some point soon some like substantial changes in your life. And we'll keep it outside of this podcast for
Okay.
now. We'll announce it later, probably. But anyway, all your pictures are public, so I'm out there looking at everything that is happening. And thank you for being here today. Is there anything else you want to share for those people that are in the commerce space? Sometimes are scared, sometimes are afraid of changes. They have an obstacles. They're losing their jobs because company does not exist anymore, or they have to become bartender overnight and pay their rent. So what would you recommend to those?
My recommendation is always network, 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 and reach out to people. If you are interested in getting involved in e-commerce or Amazon, look for a meetup, look for a master class. I mean, or a mastermind. There's things going on all over the country, especially if you're in New York or Florida or California. There's an event every other day, right? There are so many big pockets of sellers, and this is such an open and welcoming community where really everyone believes in the phrase rising tide lifts all boats. And we want to help each other learn from our own mistakes and increase this industry as a whole. And I want to thank you so much, Izabella, for being my conference mom and my mentor and my guide. And you have been such an inspiration, honestly, like from the bottom of my heart. And it's been such a gift and a blessing to know and to love you and be an extended part of your family, that I
Oh,
really appreciate everything you do for me, for your team and your family, for the whole industry. We love you. So
oh, have goosebumps. Thank you. Wait till Dylan hire you.
oh my gosh, we're all going to work for Dylan. Yes. Just hang on. If you've lost your job, it's okay. Dylan's going to hire everybody and rule the world in a couple of short years. Don't worry.
For those of you that don't know who is Dylan, Dylan is my 10 years old kid that is running around all trade
He's a
shows and,
genius.
and spreading the word about entrepreneurship without knowing anything about it. But anyway, he's already joining the network, making sure the network
Oh,
is
yeah.
there for him when he needs it. Okay, Lisa, I'll talk to you soon. Say hi to all of your male part of the company, which is like
I will.
everybody. And we love you so much. We appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Love you.